In this video, we're going to talk about DeepSeek R1, which has been the talk of the town. A lot of buzzword, DeepSeek, and that's what I'm going to be doing in this video. But I want you to stay till the end, because at the end I have something for you where we're going to talk about something that I think it's important and it's worth your time. Okay, so DeepSeek. In the past few weeks, we've heard a lot about DeepSeek, especially R1 model, which essentially is a reasoning model. What does that mean? It means it's able to reason through problems, and sometimes at a PhD level, which is really important because that is revolutionary in some sense. But not really, because OpenAI R1, they were the ones who were at the front of these new kinds of models, the reasoning models. DeepSeek was able to create R1, which is actually better than OpenAI's. Now, before we go there, I need to put out a disclaimer here. Just a few hours ago, I noticed that there's been news that OpenAI has been looking into how DeepSeek was able to quickly and cheaply create such a superior model. Now in this video, I don't want to get into that, but I just wanted you to be aware of what's going on. Regardless of anything, what I want you to take away from this is the fact that things are changing fast in this world of AI, and we just, as developers, this is exciting because of a few reasons I'm going to share with you at the end of this video. So stick around. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, DeepSeek is a Chinese company that builds AI models. So they have been around for a little while, I believe. And then the latest thing is that they came up with, or were able to come up with R1 model, which is amazing in so many ways because it's able to reason better than OpenAI R1 models. So if you go to DeepSeek.com, as of recording this video, you will see something like this. DeepSeek R1 is now live and open source, which is good. That means we can all go get it and work with it, rivaling OpenAI's model R1. Ooh, that's big. Available on web, app, and API. Click for details. So if you go ahead and click here, this is where you're going to go. It's going to go ahead to this documentation. So there's a lot going on here, but what you want to see here is that it says here performance on par with OpenAI R1. This is huge. It says it's fully open source model and technical report, MIT licensed, distill and commercialize freely. Wow, you can distill it and commercialize it freely. That's very kind. And also their website and API are all live now. Now, here the cool part is that you can actually try DeepThink by going to chatdeepseek.com. If you click here, you might need to go ahead and create an account. Go ahead and do that. I already have that. That's why I'm able to see this. Now, this is a chat box just like ChatGPT. It's running DeepSeek. You can see that we have this DeepThink R1. So if you toggle it, then it's untoggled. If you toggle again, this is going to be your R1 DeepThink model, okay? Reasoning model. So it has search as well. That is also there. So let's start with just DeepThink. I'm going to just say something like, give me a good way to prompt a joke that's funny and memorable. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. So you can see now it has this thinking. It's all about thinking. It's going to go through the process of thinking, reasoning around, and you can see exactly what it's doing. So it takes a few moments because it's going back and forth, and hopefully until it gets to a point where it knows it has it correctly, right? It has the joke for me. After finishing the thinking process, or the reasoning process, it goes ahead and actually gives me the answer. Look at this. So let's go ahead and look at the thinking here. So, okay, the user is asking for a good way to prompt a joke that's both funny and memorable. Let me break this down. They probably want to create a joke themselves or maybe understand all of that. So this is what's happening in the background, is that the model is actually going through the process of thinking through this problem and all of that. So this is nice because we can see all these steps that go into getting to final result. And at the end, it responds with to craft a joke that's funny and memorable, follow this structure. The formula, you have to combine setup, misdirection, punchline. This is good. So that means I'm going to use this in my next video. This is really good. I'm going to use this. Oh, I'm going to be famous. And why it works, there's a surprise element, relatability, brevity. This is awesome. Now, you notice that this is indeed a user interface that we can use just like ChatGPT. But you are a developer, or at least trying to be a developer to be able to use these tools so you can build applications, AI-based applications. Which reminds me that if you are interested in learning more about AI and most importantly, building AI applications, I have a community where you can come and find like-minded people who really want to make a difference by building AI-based applications from beginner to advanced. We have all kinds of people from different walks. Over there, I share all of the deep secrets about AI, as well as code templates. We have calls monthly where I present something, and we have courses. We have everything you may need to actually start building AI. So if you are interested, go ahead and check out the link in the description. All right, so going back here, as a developer, you want to be able to leverage these tools, specifically R1, to your advantage. And so there are different ways you can do this. If we go back to the main R1 release, you can see here we have your first API call. That means you can actually create an API. They do have an API you can use to start inferring these models, specifically this model. As we're recording this video, if you click here, this is what's happening. It's saying our website is currently under maintenance. Maybe at the time you watch this video, it should be working, but that's okay. What I want to show you here, instead of even using their API, which is not free, although it's cheaper, but it's not free, I'm going to show you how to use local, right? So how to take a version of DeepSeek R1 model locally and start inferring and using it. This is what we're going to do. So in order for us to run anything locally, when it comes to models, we have to understand these are very heavy, intense, which means you have to have at least 16 gigabytes of RAM and good GPU for this to run. However, the beauty here is that if you go to Ollama, if you don't know what Ollama is, I have a full video where I talk about Ollama, how to install Ollama locally, that will allow you to pull these different models and run locally and do testing and even start building prototypes for yourself. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Here's what you do. First of all, you go to Ollama.com, just look for Ollama, and if you don't have it installed, you can go ahead and download. And voila, you can see on the first page they say Llama 3.3, DeepSeek R1, Phi, Mistral, Gemma, and many others. So DeepSeek is there. Very good. So what do? You want to go ahead and download, and if Mac, download Linux, Windows, and all that. Again, if you want to learn how to do that, I have a video, or you just search. You're gonna find a lot of stuff there. Go here and search. Well, look at that. It's there. You can search for DeepSeek R1, or in this case, because it's hot, click on DeepSeek R1. So it tells us what this is and all the great stuff. So DeepSeek first generation reasoning models with comparable performance to OpenAI O1. All right, very good. Now, again, remember, these models are heavy, or really, really heavy. That's the reason why we don't have them lying around on our computer, because it takes a lot to run them, which means you have to have a pretty decent computer. But in our case, you can have a minimal modern computer with minimal requirements. You're going to be able to run it. Okay, so we have different versions here. If you click here, you can see you have 1.5B. It's only 1.1 gigabyte, 7, 8, 14, and we go all the way. Let's open this more. You can see we can go all the way to 1 terabyte. So what is the solution? The solution is to get the smaller ones, right? So you want to get, for instance, the 1.5B, which is really small. So if I go ahead and click here, you can see that this went through a quantization, which means essentially is to reduce but not losing too much of its core functionality. So it reduced it so that way the parameters are still there, but it's less. It's about 1.1 gigabyte. So that is manageable for us. Even if we want to go to 7B, that's not too bad. It's 4.7 gigabyte. So let's go ahead and do the 1.5 gigabyte. How do we get that to our local machine? So I'm going to copy this, assuming that you have Ollama running locally, downloaded, everything is good. I'm going to go ahead and open a terminal and just paste that in, Ollama run, and this is what I have right now. Okay, so you hit enter. I already have that installed. In your case, it's going to go ahead and pull all those resources and set everything up locally. Okay, assuming you have Ollama installed and it's running locally. And at this point here, you see that we have this shell where we can interact with this model. So I can ask the same question. Okay, hit enter. It's going to go through. It's using our local R1 model. How cool is that? So it's going to do the same thing you saw me do, or we saw it do when we had the user interface. And at the end, it gives us all of this. Look at that. Okay. Talks about contextual timing, the twist. So essentially the same thing we saw before. But most importantly, you can see we have this tag think. So this is the thought process that it went through, and you saw this earlier. So very good. Now you have something that is running locally. Okay. This doesn't mean this is less powerful than the main R1. It's just that it is quantized. It's a shrink a little bit, but still contains all of the juice and power. Maybe a little bit lost, but not too much. So it's manageable and it can run locally. Okay, so we have it running locally, but this is wonderful. What if we wanted to actually start prototyping, because we're programmers, we want to use the code so we can interact with this model R1. How do we do that? Well, that's awesome that you asked, because I'm going to show you exactly how to accomplish that. Let's get it. Okay, so I have a project here called DeepSeek, and we're going to go ahead and go through this process together. So the idea here is very simple. In order for us to use DeepSeek R1 locally, we know it's running. What happens with Ollama is that when you're running Ollama, which is the tool that allows you to pull different large language models, open source large language models such as this, it serves everything at an endpoint, right? So what we'll do, we're going to leverage that. Now, how do we do that? The thing is, because of the way things are, what happens is that we can actually use OpenAI, in this case SDK, Software Development Kit, to leverage it so that we can actually swap. Instead of using OpenAI, we're going to swap and use our local models. This is how you do it. Well, first of all, we got to go ahead and say pip install OpenAI. I already have that, so it's going to do that. But you will need to install that. I also have the OpenAI requirements txt there, so you have access to that. Okay, that's the only thing you need at this point. So once you do that, I'm going to go ahead in code now. All I have to do is, let's say from OpenAI, import OpenAI as such. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a client, and I'm going to just say OpenAI, instantiate OpenAI dependency here, class. And then here, this is where I'm going to pass a few things, pass in base URL like this. So usually this is how things work internally. What I'm going to do, instead of API key, I'm going to just put something that says Ollama, or leave it empty. Now, this is the base URL that when you're using internally OpenAI, this is what is hit. This is the OpenAI URL, base URL. But instead of using that, we're going to use our local one because we're running Ollama. So that way we have access to all of the models that we may have pulled into our system. Base URL is localhost 11434 v1 like this. So now it's going to be able, with this, I'm going to have access to all of the models that we have locally. Okay, now that I have this client, I can go ahead and do something like this. I'm going to say response, for instance, and I'm going to use our client because it's going to be our DeepSeek. I'm going to say invoke chat, completions, that create, just like I would if I were to use OpenAI. And then here I'm going to pass a model, and let's pass a message. Now there we have it. So instead of using this here, I'm going to use a different model. Why? Because this is not going to work, because I need to use the actual model that we have locally. Now, to make sure that I get the correct one, I'm going to go back to my terminal, or anywhere really. I'm going to say Ollama list, and I can see this is the one that I have. So I'm going to copy this name here and go back to my code, and I'm going to paste that like this. So now this client's going to go ahead and know that the model we're going to use is DeepSeek R1, which is exactly what we want. So once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and print our response like this. So this is exactly what you would do, how you would do essentially with anything else. Okay, OpenAI and so forth. Okay, let's go ahead and save this and give it a quick run. I can just click here and see what's going to happen. And it's running. I can hear it, by the way. And just like that, you can see that we have a payload here. You can see that we're running and it's local, and there's a think tag, and it goes through all the thought process and everything. And in the end, it's going to give us exactly the essence of living life in a joyful yet mindful manner, involves connecting into all this great thing. A few things have happened here. You were able to take the open source R1 and put that inside of your computer locally, and you can start building local applications, testing things out, doing MVPs and all of that using your own local model, in this case R1, with all its capabilities. The other thing I can do here, I can also make this more interesting. I can say, for instance, instead of false, I'm going to say true, because I want to be able to stream so we can see all those messages actually stream out in our user interface. And for that, all I have to do is I loop through the response and get all those chunks and then print them out. So that you will see that it will start showing all of the things as they come in, which is pretty awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and run this again. And now you'll see, voila, it's doing exactly what we've seen before. So you can see you can put this into a user interface, create a nice user interface, and start running DeepSeek chat with R1 locally, because you can literally start asking questions and go from there. All right, so there we go. Now you have this whole thing going on here. You can take this and play around with this, build prototypes so you can see the power. And the beauty here, ladies and gentlemen, is that you have a mini version of R1 running locally. Make sure that you have all the requirements for your computer so that this runs nicely. But it's such a small version that it should be fairly okay. Let me know what you think. Okay, now the moment you've been waiting for. The idea here is beyond everything that you may be reading, you may be seeing on the web about R1 and all of that. What is important? What do you have to think about? How do you think about this as a developer, someone who wants to leverage this? Number one, most people think as a developer, somebody who wants to build AI applications using code, they think my job is going to be obsolete. I don't think so. This is the time for you to really dial in and start thinking about what can you do to leverage these tools. Because what will happen is this is showing to the world that things are getting easier, quote unquote, for these companies that make models, that train these models and give these models, okay, away or in the form of payments and all of that. That tells you that what will happen is as more and more companies are starting to come up with very advanced models such as this one, the pricing of inference is going to start going down. What does that mean? It means that for us developers, for clients, for what we're trying to build, it's going to be cheaper and cheaper, and the quality is going to elevate. So it's a win-win. So for you as a developer, what I tell my friends, people in my community, my students and so forth, is that think of this as the opportunity of a lifetime. You need to learn AI. That's why you're probably watching this. And not in a way of just as entertainment, but as a way for you, as a stepping stone for you to be more productive, but also to help others, serve others. There's a lot of businesses out there that will need your services, or maybe you want to build that SaaS product that you always wanted to build. Now it's getting easier and easier. And so use these skills, learn about the skills, use AI as leverage. That's what I have for you. So if you have any questions, if you want me to go into a deeper overview of DeepSeek or large language model in general, well, let me know. I'm excited that you're here. I hope this was helpful and informative. Till next time, be well.